Jewish Channel's Week in Review. A major deal for Palestinian leadership could signal the end of dealing on the peace process, why the royal wedding will have a long-lasting impact on the Jewish community, why this matzoh is going fast right after Passover, what bin Laden's death means for Israel and the Jewish community, and more of the Jewish news that's changing your world right now in this episode of the Week in Review. Hello, and welcome to the Jewish Channel's Week in Review. I'm Stephen I. Weiss. It's a blow to peace and a great victory for terrorism, in the words of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Netanyahu's quote is referring to a unity pact between Fatah and Hamas, the two Palestinian governments. Fatah is the party headed by Mahmoud Abbas and Salam Fayyad, the two men who'd been pushing toward peace negotiations and institutional reforms inside the West Bank territory in which they'd been elected to head the Palestinian Authority, or PA. Hamas is the organization that has been elected to govern Gaza in recent years and is considered a terrorist organization by Israel, the United States, and the European Union. It is headed by Ismail Haniyeh. While news of an impending deal was floating over Passover, it was only this past Wednesday that the deal was actually struck, and some details remain unclear. Most lacking is information about the role of Salam Fayyad, regarded as the chief reformer and moderate among Palestinian leadership, and who had been considered Prime Minister of the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank. Hamas statements prior to the agreement had declared that Fayyad would need to be removed from office as part of any deal, but it's not clear whether Fatah has agreed to that condition. Even in the hours before the deal was to be signed, the United States State Department continued to speak as though the deal was entirely prospective, perhaps as an indication of hope it wouldn't go through. The State Department, in considering Fatah a partner in the pursuit of peace and Hamas a terrorist organization, will need to devise a new strategy in light of the unity deal. As an indication of the temperament of the State Department, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton spoke with both Israel's Netanyahu and Fatah's Fayyad on the eve of the deal to discuss the situation, but notably not with Hamas or with Abbas, who is seen as leading Fatah into this deal with Hamas. But moving on from the topic of Hamas to the terrorism subject that grabbed most of the world's attention this week, the death of Osama bin Laden is shining a light on how Israel and the United States are viewed among Middle East leadership, and also on the new Palestinian government. While most of the Western world was appreciating the loss of al-Qaeda's leader, there was division among the various Arab and Islamic governments and party leaders, as well as among the two main factions in what is now a Palestinian unity government. Here's what Fatah's leadership had to say early on Monday. Getting rid of bin Laden is good for the cause of peace worldwide, but what counts is to overcome the discourse and the methods, the violent methods, that were created and encouraged by bin Laden and others in the world, was the statement from a PA spokesperson. Salam Fayyad had his own sentiments to add, declaring bin Laden's death, quote, a major mega landmark event marking the end of a person who clearly was involved in acts of terror and destruction. But what did Hamas have to say about bin Laden's death? Here's Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh's statement. We condemn the assassination and the killing of an Arab holy warrior. We ask God to offer him mercy with the true believers and the martyrs. We regard this as a continuation of the American policy based on oppression and the shedding of Muslim and Arab blood. Obviously, those comments from Hamas come at an interesting time for U.S.-Palestinian relations. The immediate response from a U.S. State Department spokesperson was to refer to them as, quote, outrageous. But divisive comments about bin Laden's death are coming from more than just the Palestinian leadership. Egypt's Muslim Brotherhood released a statement that took something of a middle ground on bin Laden's death. While it stopped short of decrying bin Laden's death, it did refer to the, quote, Zionist enemy of Israel, referred to bin Laden as Sheikh Osama bin Laden, and condemned the U.S. style of attack, saying, the Muslim Brotherhood is against the use of violence in general and against the method of assassinations and for the fair trial of anyone accused of any crime whatsoever. And so long as there is occupation, there will remain legitimate resistance, and the United States and NATO and the European Union should quickly declare the end of the occupation of Afghanistan and Iraq and recognize the legitimate rights of the Palestinian people. In other international news, Canada has re-elected Stephen Harper into his first majority government with the Conservative Party. The Conservative Party is viewed as more in line with the Netanyahu government's policies than other Canadian political parties. And if one's discussing international news these days, the recent royal wedding would seem to have already faded from the public's memory due to other occurrences around the globe. But as Rebecca Honig-Freeman reports, the impact of Kate Middleton's wedding could be felt in the Jewish community for years to come.
Behind me is Kleinfeld's, where they're kicking off wedding season with their annual blowout wedding gown sale, where brides-to-be come to find designer gowns at discount prices. But for brides-to-be this season, there's one particular gown on everyone's mind.
It was simple, it was classic, it was Grace Kelly, it was gorgeous.
I absolutely adored it. I love the silhouette. I love the embellishments on it.
But the feature that stood out the most for many Orthodox Jewish women were the sleeves. In a market dominated by a sea of strapless wedding dresses, the search for a fashion-forward, modest gown fitting for an Orthodox wedding ceremony can be challenging, if not impossible, for brides-to-be like Leba Grussgott.
In my community, I have to be covered, basically what I'm wearing now, past my elbows, up to my collarbone. Nothing can be sheer, so there were a lot of requirements.
And while one can find ready-made gowns meeting these requirements in heavily Orthodox enclaves like Brooklyn, those dresses were not to Leba's taste.
Sometimes people can get lucky, but I knew that I had my eye on designer dresses and was flipping through magazines and looking for, like, the perfect wow dress.
So like many of her Orthodox bridal peers, Leba opted for what's known as a build-up, modifying a ready-made, often strapless dress to meet modesty requirements. Build-ups, which allow a bride to customize her gown, but also add hundreds of dollars to the cost, have become common at bridal boutiques like Designer Loft in Midtown Manhattan, where Leba is getting her wow dress. Owner Liz Selassie said she too has been frustrated in the search for more modest, ready-made gowns for her clients.
When I have looked at modest lines, sort of covered lines, the build-ups are so badly done, so poorly done, that I'd actually quite prefer to have my seamstresses do it.
But will Kate Middleton's more conservative gown be a game changer? At Adrian's Bridal in Lower Manhattan, where they also do lots of build-ups, owner and designer Marianne Greco thinks so.
I do think strapless is going to be over, even though girls will be fighting it. I do see a return to non-strapless gowns, not necessarily sleeves, but I think gradually sleeves will become more and more popular.
And that change, as inspired by the royal wedding gown, is already in evidence from some of the non-Jewish brides-to-be we spoke to.
Actually, when I saw it, I fell in love with it, so I changed my mind. I was going for the strapless princess ballroom gown dress, but now Kate Middleton dress.
This mother of the bride said her daughter, who ordered a strapless gown before seeing the royal wedding, was now opting for a build-up of her own.
She's going to put some covering on the shoulders now, and I think it's going to look even better. She mentioned that to me after the royal wedding, so.
But of course, not everyone is opting for the Kate.
I like it more her sister's dress.
What kind of dress are you looking for?
Something less conservative, more provocative, like more cleavage. The same sweetheart top, but it's just not the sleeves, not the lacy conservative sleeves.
And even Kate's gown, Marianne points out, isn't quite modest enough for an Orthodox wedding.
Her dress was not lined, so it did give the illusion of still being strapless. But if this was an Orthodox wedding, it would have to be covered, and the neckline was a bit low, would have to be a little bit higher.
But modesty aside, there are other reasons to cover up.
I think strapless is getting a bit boring. There's, issues with it. Girls are always trying to, bring it up.
Nor should every woman wear a strapless. Not every woman looks great in a strapless.
For those women especially, Kate's dress could be eye-opening.
And they're going to look and say, look, if Kate can do it and she's so stylish, maybe I can also try that gown on as well.
So what did Leba think of the royal gown?
Yeah, I liked Kate's dress. My mom actually thinks that my dress is prettier, but I'm sure all moms say that.
But we'll have to take her mom's word for it. With just a few weeks before the wedding, Leba decided not to show us the dress. Reporting for the Jewish Channel, I'm Rebecca Honig-Friedman.
Thank you, Rebecca. Passover might be over, but Manischewitz is just getting started with its preparations in Newark. Christian Needham reports.
I'm standing in front of the old Manischewitz factory in downtown Jersey City, where for many years so many food products beloved by the Jewish community were produced. Well, today those products are produced just across the river in Newark. Manischewitz is famous for many Jewish food products, and perhaps especially its matzah. Until recently, its various operations were scattered across different municipalities, but now they're all under one roof in southeast Newark. Paul Bensabat co-owns Manischewitz and several other brand names, like Cohen's, Ratner's, and Barney's, with Alan Bankier. And he said Newark City officials were instrumental in the recent consolidation.
They've worked extremely closely with us. They've bent backwards to help us make this happen. And we couldn't be more pleased, with the way they've reacted at the concept of us coming to Newark and potentially putting our headquarters here.
Their new 200,000 square foot factory affords them the opportunity to make quite a lot of kosher food. They can produce 37 million pounds of matzah in a single year. In this footage of their matzah operation, we can see water and flour coming together, after which it's an 18-minute race to the oven to meet Passover standards. Automated stations sheet and slice the dough as technicians and rabbis monitor. Inside the 150-foot oven, the matzah is baked at between 700 and 800 degrees. Afterwards, the matzah is separated for packaging in stay-fresh pouches or used in other Passover products, including cookies, cakes, and matzah ball soup mix. The $13 million matzah production line took 2 years and input from 40 contractors to bring online. It can produce 1,200 pieces of matzah a minute and over 5,800 pounds of dough an hour. And Manischewitz needs people to run all that equipment. According to Bensabat, overall operation will require 250 year-round employees and potentially 600 seasonal positions. The company is now a long way from its original roots in Cincinnati, where it was founded in 1888. They launched their first New Jersey factory in Jersey City in 1932 and are now back in one city for the first time since 2007. It's a change that the city of Newark welcomes.
They've brought first a manufacturing plant, which is a terrific facility that manufactures a range of Manischewitz products right here in Newark, and of course employs our residents and is an economic engine for the region. And now they're bringing their offices and in fact their headquarters itself to Newark, New Jersey, making this the coordinating site for all of their activity. And that means more jobs, but it also means symbolically something very important, which is that Newark is a headquarters city.
To hear more about the reasons for the Manischewitz headquarters consolidation in Newark, please tune into the full broadcast edition of the Week in Review.
Thank you, Christian. That's all for this week. From all of us here at the Jewish Channel, be well. The Jewish Channel is available on cable: IO Optimum Cable Channel 291, Time Warner Cable Channel 528, RCN Channel 268, Verizon Fios Channel 900, and Cox Cable Channel 1. For more information, visit tjctv.com.